Yeah. Welcome back to 83 Till Infinity. This is Disco Trek, our Star Trek Discovery podcast. Today we're talking episode 5 of season 3.
That's correct.
Is that right? It was titled Die Trying. Director was Maya Vervillo, something along those lines. Writers James Duff and Sean Cochran. I am Bert.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Captain Ding Dong, and you're on the rundown for Star Trek Disco, Trek fans.
Good.
My name's on the tile, they'll see it.
Couldn't stop myself. Okay. So
I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to have a morning show on the radio, a meaningless morning show where I'm a misogynist, I'm mildly insulting, and I have a helicopter guy that does the traffic.
the dream.
The dream.
Yeah. So why don't we go to scores first? Jesse.
Well, Bert, I don't know if you want to talk about who scored recently, but your mom called. Okay, all right. We're dropping the morning zoo format. I think I give this episode 7 out of 10.
7. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm adjusting. I mean, these are relative to the rest of Discovery.
Right,
So that's the thing.
right.
Like, I'm
This
trying
is
to
the
adjust
Discovery
them,
scale.
right? Like, you compare this to The Mandalorian, they're all -5.
I mean, I would say I would give it an 8, and I did give it an 8. But then after I remembered how obnoxious the titles have been for every episode, I think I should subtract at least 1 point.
Oh.
But I think I'm going to land on 8.
You land on 8? Okay. I also gave it an 8 on the Discovery scale. I thought because we waited so long to actually see the future, and they sort of delayed for 5 episodes to actually get to see the Future Federation, just having that payoff and having the futuristic ships look futuristic, and we'll get to that later, I had a lot of misgivings, and I was very worried that everything was going to look non-futuristic like the first 4 episodes did. So this salvaged a little bit of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Predictions. Do we have any prediction updates? Let's see. No main character deaths that we know of yet. I guess we had one supporting character who left, but was anybody really connected to Nhan? Like, anybody? Does anybody get really miss her?
I mean, I didn't know that was her name.
You see?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a really strange decision because, like Jesse, I mean, I thought that she was a cool-ish alien, and I thought that she was a character that I have seen many times, and then she's now gone. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a loss. Yeah, like you said, Bert, I don't exactly know if I miss her, but I mean, it's one of the, at least she was an attempt at an alien, because, I mean, this crew doesn't have a lot of aliens on it, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I think the actress saw the show. And then she
The
wanted
first
out.
time.
She wanted out of me. She hadn't watched it until that point. Then she watched it and she said, I want out of this.
I think maybe her mom saw the show. I don't know if you guys, and not just because, like, you know, your mom, but I don't know if you guys read any of the articles about the actor, but do you remember the stories about how they were going to cancel the original series and there was a letter writing campaign? And they actually ended up not canceling it partially because of that. So her mother was one of the organizers for the letter writing campaign. So her mom's like a super fan and has always been a super fan. And she, you know, kept it a secret from her mom that she was even going to be on the show. And so her mom,
that's cool.
Her mom saw her on the screen for the first time and didn't.
That is very cool.
Yeah, didn't recognize her for like the first couple scenes and then caught on later.
That's pretty cool.
But maybe her mom has been watching and it's just like, I can't have my family associated with this.
So she started a second letter writing campaign.
Yeah, it was
Fire
a new
my
letter
daughter.
to get her off.
Fire my daughter.
Get
Put her
off
on the Pike show.
Yeah. Yeah, get her back on the Enterprise. It's just, I mean, like, it has to be, that actress has to have left for some reason, because to me that's just a stupid way to, like, you brought this character, you clearly brought a character over from the Enterprise that you thought was going to be interesting. She looked interesting. She sounded interesting. I liked the character. I kept waiting for them to do something with her, and then the something they did with her was kick her off the ship.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Like it was
Genius move.
Her race was interesting. You know, we can't breathe in your atmosphere without some sort of apparatus. They were alien. You know.
So
I guess that's why they had
so
to get rid of them.
I connect with the aliens with breathing difficulties.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. I feel like she covered off a huge swath of the fandom.
Yeah, and then they purged. Now they're not covered anymore.
Yeah.
So no resurrections yet. And I guess we had cameos as far as actors, but not from, characters that we've seen in other series, because it is 900 plus years in the future. I guess they're all dead. And as far as Captain Watsu, still the captain, although Michael Burnham's being real insubordinate. Forgot all about Chain of Command, but we'll get to that, I guess, in the episode chat segment. Does anybody else have any prediction stuff you want to cover, or you want to go straight to episode chat?
I think I'll just briefly talk about the what is the burn, and that we managed to talk about the burn for 10 minutes again without learning any new information, which just feels frustrating.
Unbelievable.
And he just said all of the same things that we have already learned. We don't know if it was an attack. It looks like it was an attack.
Yeah.
Probably was an attack. We have competing theories, but it may not have been an attack, which is really leaning me towards it was an attack.
Yeah.
It was clearly an attack.
You know what would have been awesome?
It has something to do with the cello music too. I mean,
anything but that. Anything but that, please.
This is going to end like St. Elsewhere. They're in some kid's head. He's listening to the music.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's been the dog's dream the whole time. All of Star Trek.
Spock's having a dream. He always wanted a sister.
They're just gonna, at the end of this series, they'll just cut to like a scene from the original series where Spock wakes up and goes to and starts his shift, and then that's the end.
That's the end.
That was odd. And then just continues on his day. But I do think it would have been funny if Admiral Vance, they ask him finally, once they're able to ask him questions, what was the burn? And he's like, we don't know, but the burn was the day the universe took a hard left. That's just what everybody says.
That's what everyone says, yeah.
Okay, episode chat. Who wants to go first? How about Jesse?
Okay. This is not one of my points, but the guy that played Admiral Vance, I've only ever seen him in The Mummy and in the first Deuce Bigalow, obviously. And he always speaks with an accent. So I had always assumed that the guy had a real, because, he has an accent in both Deuce Bigalow and in because it turns out guy doesn't have an accent.
Oh, he does?
That was really weird.
Well,
yeah.
Huh. I thought he had, because he's Israeli, the actor. So I just thought he had like a normal Israeli accent, but he doesn't, I guess.
No, he's just, he's just didn't have an accent. It was just one of those things where it's like I always assumed that he just had like an Israeli accent because he has it in every other thing he's been in except this.
He's just
he's lost weight. I assumed
that as well.
Just an actual good actor.
That guy's lost weight. Yeah. He was jacked before.
He's very
kind of thin now.
Since he left the desert, he's really slimmed down.
Okay, so you can cut to it if you want, like when they pull into Starfleet HQ. But I guess, in this episode, we saw the Discovery arrive at last episode. They finally got the memories from Senatal, who, sent them to Starfleet HQ, and they get there and they arrive and they go through the cloaking barrier, I guess, because Starfleet's so terrified they got to hide their existence. And they see future Starfleet. And I think that this did look kind of proper. At least this sequence looked properly futuristic. I like this, that they're all kind of tethered with these like energy strands. The ships look really weird, but in a good way. Like it looks like, I did find that some of the, sometimes I find this happens with CG things, and Star Trek's probably the worst culprit. They look a little indistinct. Like it was hard to kind of like see one clearly.
Yeah.
I hate when they do that in shows, and I think I don't know what causes it, but it's like all the shots are blurry, and I feel like Alex, you'll talk about it later, but when you show pictures, but even then I feel like some of the screen grabs are like blurry. It's like someone trying to take a picture of a UFO, but they do look futuristic. So I think this is the first, and the interior of their station looks really futuristic. And I mean, I do think I like that they made an attempt to kind of make this look more future-y.
Yeah.
And I guess I appreciate that. I appreciate that the ships didn't look like a bunch of the, like the ones we saw blow up with the burn a few episodes back. I mean, I thought they were just going to look like very sort of standard, stretched out Starfleet ships. And no, instead they actually look like they look different. Like it kind of makes the Discovery look like an old ship.
Yeah.
All right.
It really did. Yeah.
Yeah. So mission accomplished. I think good for them. The inside of their thing looked great. I did think it was weird that in the middle of their like command deck, they also have a sick bay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's because they're just building a set, and that's fine when you're building a set. I get it. But I mean, it was just kind of like, hey, we're on the command section. Right there is sick bay.
Yeah.
Look at those Keelys.
I think they might have had a throwaway line to address that actually, because she says like it's overflowing and they have to treat them in the hallway.
Oh, there you go. And I think that's like I didn't like their uniforms. I hate the new Starfleet uniforms. They look like militaristic. I'm not crazy about them, but whatever. They're just uniforms. But that's where the good news ends. So overall, again, I think this is a stupid episode that, aside from giving us some interesting insight into Starfleet and what's going on and setting up a few mysteries, I mean, there's so many things about this that I just think is dumb. If you go to like the 30-minute-ish mark, I hate the glasses guy. This makes no sense at all, right? It's like they're like, we want to have this like sort of interesting like spy master character who, he's going to have glasses and he wears them to... And there he is. Look at this. Yeah. And she asks him, Giorgio asks him, why are you wearing glasses? And he's like, I think they make me look smarter.
Yeah.
And that would be like me. If you saw the show notes that I had, that would be like me saying something like, I'm wearing a laurel on my head because I think it makes me look more distinguished. Or Bert wearing a monocle to work and being like, it makes me look smarter. I'm wearing a monocle. Nobody would wear you're 1,000 years in the future. He has no cultural attachment to glasses in any way that should make him think that makes him look smarter, right? That would be like me wearing slashed velvet.
Yeah.
And thinking that it makes me look wealthy.
Yeah.
Instead of just stupid or like a Renaissance fair enthusiast.
That's the thing, right? Like the reference to like it's a cultural sort of idea that glasses make you look smarter. And it's an idea of our time. And I would assume that 1,000 plus years in our future, they would have other, cultural references or indicators that someone is intelligent aside from glasses. Since, we're already at a point where many issues with vision can be treated and corrected with, laser eye surgery. Yeah. I assume that they'll have fixed that before 1,000 years from now. So the idea that he wears them because they make him look smart is ridiculous. Like he looks like, do you ever watch Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the old one?
Yep.
With Alec Guinness? He looks like Alec Guinness. And I'm just like, there's no way he watched that movie. He's
wearing a suit that I could wear to work now. And I'm just thinking, like, seriously, like we're talking what? Like he's 1,300 years in the future from where we are. And he could go to our office, like where Bert and I work, dressed like this, and nobody would think he was in a costume.
Yeah.
Aside from his little pin. They'd be like, what's the pin for? Is it is it a special month? Is it for something? Is it a cancer thing?
It's an anti-masker pin. Get away from me.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it sort of reminds me of a conversation that TNG had where they were talking about how the fact that Picard is bald and a couple of other things like gray hair, baldness. And they're like, listen, like this is the 23rd century. Like surely they would have cured baldness by now. And the showrunners are like, you know what? In the 23rd century, they do not care about baldness. Like in the 23rd century, like our current understandings of and our current social mores, they're so different 1,000 years from now or 300 years from now, so that like you can't predict. And in our science fiction universe, nobody cares about that. And so, to your point, Jesse, like the stuff changes so much in 50 years, let alone 300, that touchstone is just completely lost and complete. And I thought it was very strangely out of place because he looks so modern. And I think the biggest problem that Star Trek has is when it looks like it's set in modern day. It blows my suspension of belief to smithereens. Is when I see people that are like, I could, like you said, I could see that guy outside my house right now.
Yeah.
And who behaves so like incredibly modern too, like their language, their vocabulary, their intonation, the expressions they use, and you just think like no one's going to sound like that. But like, okay, I can believe maybe a couple hundred years in the future people sound relatively the same as they do now, but that far ahead, I mean, come on, son. I didn't. There's so much I didn't like about it, and I kind of liked the character. Like in a different Star Trek series or something, he'd be fine. If you're setting it when you're supposed to be setting it, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. Would have been fine on Enterprise.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He would have been fine on Enterprise. There's a good one. And he could have still been wearing the glasses maybe. And I would have not hated the fact that he was wearing glasses. The last one is I hated, the whole thing with the seed ship and the dead family and the contaminated food and the prions. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but then it also didn't make any sense. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like we couldn't figure out prions in 1,300 years?
Yeah, I mean,
right? No one can figure out rogue proteins for 1,300 years. We have people that are close to figuring that out now. Like how did you not figure out prions? And then his family dies. Is it Burzon? What's that race called? Nhan's race.
And those Barzon,
whatever. This is probably the last time we'll see them. They got canceled just like her. But I think like he's got his family in stasis. And I was thinking about I think it's second season TNG, where they encounter the cryo ship from the 20th century, right? That are people who were just frozen and shot into space. And they're all dead.
Yeah.
And you know what they do? They revive them. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, so they've just figured out a way to cure the issue with the prions that are ravaging these people's bodies. So they had the cure. They had the dead bodies. Why couldn't we bring them back? Like they did, like, you know what I mean? And this is the problem. It's like they start off with showing us a future that feels properly futury.
Yeah.
And then they ruin it by having these problems that should not be problems anymore, right? Yeah. And like, okay, you've got them in stasis. Maybe we could revive them, right? We can clearly bring dead people back to life. Unless they're trying to like retcon that whole idea that we can bring dead people back to life in the future. But I don't know. I kind of thought like that made me feel like they're not trying hard enough. And I just feel like that's again, my entire problem with the show is the writers just don't try hard enough, right? It's like they want to tell a story, but they don't want to think things out so that they make sense. So they just keep making problems that shouldn't be. Yeah. They could make other problems and it would be fine, right?
To your point, I think it's interesting when you're making a world in fantasy and science fiction, you make rules and you have to follow your own rules. You don't have to follow the other rules. You want people to come back to life. You want a CME explosion to have Beta killed all of these kids. Or you don't have to. Like, you don't have to, like you said, Jesse, you can absolutely just come with a tricorder, zoop, and then be like, okay, they're fixed. Yeah. Like, it's their decision. It's their own rules to break. And so when you decide to follow the rules in science fiction, it does come off to me, like you said, as just a lack of imagination on the part of the writers, and just a lack of vision, I think, to show us, the audience, a cool, better future.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like I found like in Netflix, say like in other Trek series, like if they wanted to have like a health crisis, a lot of the times, as long as somebody was on the ship, there wasn't really a health crisis because medical science had advanced so much by the time we got to the 24th century that, You know, like, so if they wanted to have an episode where there was a health crisis, they'd find a way to make it so that they didn't have access to everything on the ship and you know, the things they needed, or the prime directive was in the way and people were drinking contaminated water and they were trying to figure out a way to save them without breaking the rule. You know what I mean? Like, they'd always try to think of how you could tell a health related story, you know, without sort of breaking their rules.
Yeah.
And they took the time to do that, and here they're just not. They're like, oh yeah, there's going to be a family, and the, you know, then it's this the other thing. They never spend enough time on anything to kind of build up that particular area of the story,
to
like
make you care about
everything. Yeah, I feel like they pack so much into some of these episodes. This happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and by the end of it, you're like, they spent 5 seconds on each thing, and you kind of feel like nothing got developed, nothing got fleshed out. I can't remember anyone's names. That's the biggest problem with this show is, like, I don't know the other helmsman's name.
I don't either.
Yep, Detmer and what's her face. I mean, and to me, that's a problem.
Partner? Oh, Osakun.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
you know what I mean?
I know her name because I had to look it up for this episode.
You win.
But why don't I know her name? It's because they never use it, right? Yeah. And it's like there's that blonde girl on the bridge now that sometimes she's a lieutenant and she gets to have the cons sometimes. I don't know her name.
Yeah, I don't know her name either.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, they used her name twice this episode, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that she was a named character and not an extra.
Yeah, then you forgot.
I can name all the people that Mando meets, because you know why? Because the writers are cognizant of the fact that you have to repeat a name so many times so that people understand who that person is. No one's forgetting Dr. Mandible.
Yeah,
ever.
And you don't have to have 50 characters in the episode. Like, so along the lines of what you were saying earlier, I just wanted to say that, like, you know, we talked about this in the last episode. One of my fears with them going this far into the future is that they were running away from canon, so it was easier to write, or so that, you know, it would be perceived to be easier to write. Because it's difficult to write something when you have a ton of canon that you have to write around and, you know, remember all of the references and all of the rules that have been created. It does make for better writing when you have a world that's fleshed out and has rules, and you have to abide by them and create a story that's cohesive, but it is more work. So if you just want to write your story and you don't want to be tied down by, you know, all of Star Trek and the Star Trek rules, then go 1,000 years into the future. And yeah, you're not tied to a lot of the canon because you're 1,000 years in the future. So all of the technological limitations, you can say those are gone now. The Federation is collapsed, so you can say most of the Federation directives and rules are gone, and they don't govern most planets because they're not members anymore. But you've gone 1,000 years in the future. So the work you have to do now is to make things 1,000 years in the future. And that work, I'm worried that they really haven't done. Like, there's some cool CGI, but there are a lot of things that are, you know, protocol wise, how would this exist, you know, for 1,000 years without changing at all? Why does everything look the same? How come everybody's a human? It's a lot of things that it doesn't really seem like they bothered, because they thought, well, we got away from the canon that was a lodestone around our neck, so now we can just write whatever we want, and we have sort of free reign. And that's sort of devil may care attitude often does not lead to a good output.
Yeah. I played Mass Effect Andromeda. That shtick never works for anybody. Right? Throw them 600 years into the future, into another galaxy, and see how that works out. It works out stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah. Time skipping is rarely a good idea in science fiction fantasy. I mean, it just means that you have to be a really good writer, because instead of inventing one world, now you have to invent two. Yeah. And a lot of people can't handle doing that. Yeah. It's a lot more work.
And I mean, it's one thing to write it when it's your novel. You know, if it's your fantasy novel or series and you're writing it on your own, that's one thing. But when you get to write one episode and then somebody else is writing the next one, and, you know, they probably didn't even read your script. They just sort of gave it the once over and then wrote whatever story they wanted to, then you get inconsistency, and that's sad for the audience. It's sort of, in my opinion, it's a little bit disrespectful to the audience that a lot of times they don't seem to have gone through the work to make things cogent. Okay. Yeah. Alex.
All right. So where I wanted to start was one that we just briefly talked about, which is the big reveal, the one that we've been waiting 5 episodes for, is when when they pass through the dispersion cloak shield, and we get to see all of the ships and all of the new tech, and watching the bridge crew nerd out about, it's like, oh, like this is only theoretical. This was only theoretical. It was really nice to hear, because it really rebuts the strongest criticism. I know we said this already, but the strongest criticism that we've had for the last few episodes. But I think what I really wanted to highlight was that tweet by a guy named Jorg Hillebrand on Twitter. His handle is GAGHYOGI49. I'm sure that means something, but that I'm missing. But he basically just screen grabs and pulls all of the different ships, and so we can all sit around and talk about how cool they look. And there's a couple of cool Easter eggs in there, and just a lot of a really futuristic looking stuff. And I was really pleased with that. Like, personally, I think that the rainforest looked really cool. I really like the Constitution, the huge Constitution class. But I mean, I think they all look cool in their own way. I especially like the Type 5 in the middle there, where they're trying to make, weird looking stuff.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that they did do weird scenes.
That the Type 5 reminds me of something, and I can't put my finger on it. There's some.
It looks
ship
like,
in
what
some-
the Type 5 looks like, the bad guy ship from Star Trek Into Darkness.
It does a bit.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is.
I think that's what it is from RoboCop's ship.
A classic.
Yeah. You know what? I hated about this though, that they're all sitting at the window, and they're like, "Oh, that's a new Constitution class. Look at that one. It's a scout." And I'm like, "How the heck do you know that?"
Yeah.
Right? There's no way you could tell that's the new Constitution class, right? You idiot! Like that to me. Again, this is the writers being like, and what they'll do is they'll name some of the classes, and they'll be able to kind of tell. Then look at that picture. Right. There's no way anyone's looking at that and being like, there's a Constitution class. It's right there.
Right. And I think that what they're trying to do is do an Easter eggy kind of reference. I mean, obviously the Voyager was one, like stuff like that. But I do agree with you that like the cultural shift is so big that it's strange that they would be like guessing the sizes, I guess, the classes of all of these of all these ships.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing I wanted to load up was 12 minutes, which was a scene for Jesse.
Oh boy, this is gonna be good.
It's the hologram that's being nosy to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Hit it.
All right. And your limbic system's been getting quite a workout, Commander. Are you prone to emotional exaggeration?
And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh man. It's like, if you're just pandering to the fans now, the fans are all like, she's so emotional. She's too emotional. And so, yeah, I think that they address that in a funny,
There you go.
way. I think that they have canon explained to Jessie why she's so emotional.
There you go.
She's got an overactive limbic system.
That's right,
Yeah.
Jesse. It's biology.
Although I've accepted the fact that, you know what, this is one thing where they should have just accepted that, yeah, you know what, people have really expressed themselves in the Starship, because in the future, it's not taboo to be like emotionally expressive in front of your peers in a professional setting.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. That would make sense. But that's not what, like, now they're it's like they're taking Rose Tycho out of Star Wars, because they're just like, oh, she's just prone to emotional exaggeration.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so you're admitting that you're just writing people that are too emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the admitting. Okay, so the next thing that we learned in this episode was that the Federation had 350 member planets at its peak.
Yeah.
So, Bert, I'll ask you, like, in my headcanon, 350 sounds like not the right number.
It sounds
what
pretty
about
low.
to you?
Yeah. That sounds low. If you're saying the peak, I mean, my goodness, 350. I would have thought thousands.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe thousands upon thousands, but 350. It seems pretty small. I mean,
yeah, in my headcanon, it was definitely at least thousands.
And I mean,
oh no, well, I mean, sorry, I'm just fact checking it.
Right.
in 2373, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, and everything that man says is gospel.
Right.
Good old JL,
JL
mentions that the Federation has over 150 planets.
Yep. And I think it was the same number for the original series was like, yeah, they were in the 150 range. So like they clearly like they went back and said like what would be more than 150. That. But to me, like I guess I don't know, my headcanon has even in the TNG era as like a few hundred being seems low. But at the same time, I guess a few hundred does represent hundreds of billions of people. So like I mean it is sort of exponential into its scale.
But if you look at the maps of like the like say like the Alpha Quadrant, right? Like I mean, like a lot of it's taken up by Romulan.
Yeah, the Romulan,
right? Like you have like the map is pretty crowded in the Alpha Quadrant. So I mean, I think like that's reasonable that's as far as they got. You know what so? But like I think it's okay.
Like I mean, I guess then my question would be, when is this peak? Right? Because how long did it take them to get to 150? Not very long.
I guess, yeah, I think that's sort of where I'm feeling is that like I feel like the Federation to me would be like an exponential curve. If you're talking, so if the Burn's 100 years ago, and so this is like 800 years, it goes from 200-ish to 350-ish, like doubling. Like to me, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, like so I would say, if you presuppose or if you accept that technological prowess insofar as the Federation's ability to travel quickly, and then the number of ships that they have, the number of trajectories that they can travel at that increasing speed, and then you have more ships that can travel faster, and hopefully you're getting better at the diplomacy piece. Plus, if you assume that space has a somewhat regular dispersal of sentient life, then you would think that you can cover more ground, you can cover it faster, you have more ships to cover, and you're better at convincing people to join. You should be increasing the number of people who are joining up, unless you're making some real big mistakes. So I would have thought that they would have done more than double in 800 years after the last thing that we've seen in the timeline. But maybe they had, like, maybe the burn was terrible, but maybe they were already well into their decline before the burn happened. We don't know that.
Yeah.
Right? So
because we don't have a year on the burn yet, right?
Not exactly.
100
That's what kind of bothers me
years
too.
in the past,
why don't we have a year on the burn, right? Like why can't they at least say, hey, when did it happen?
Right.
150 years ago.
Yeah, if the burn was cataclysmic, like if the burn is the fall of the Roman Empire, and the people, the people living in the Dark Ages are like, I don't know who built those aqueducts, giants. It's some time in the past. They're gone now. Okay, I get that. If people are, subsistent farming again, but they're not. They're still spacefaring. I assume that they have computers, like if not just books, and they can write down. In this year, all the ships blew up, and I assume everybody would be taught that because it seems like a pretty big deal, but it's amorphous. Some time ago.
What I wanted to find in the future was a society that had backstepped so far that they were worshiping Q, right? And like Q was like, I could see he'd appear to like the Discovery crew dressed as like the Pope or something. He'd have so much fun with it. I want John Delancey. Is it Delancey? Yeah, right. Yeah, I got his name right. I want Q to come back. Maybe not in this show, but maybe in season 2 of Picard.
I could see him. I could see him in season 2 of Picard. Tone wise, I couldn't see him on Discovery. I feel like
definitely not.
They Discovery takes itself too seriously to have a Q character.
It really does.
Yeah.
But on Lord X, he's in it a couple of times. They made a couple of Q references, and they were both very funny. They just running by and be like you deal with Q. It's like making them all into chess pieces or something.
The lower decks might be the best new Trek series. I
think it absolutely is.
Now.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it. It was a great show.
Me too. Okay, so my last super duper quick point is just the thing I'm going to complain about every week because it's the same thing. It's when you say jargon to do your sci-fi nonsense. The residual radiation is messing with our instruments. We can't transport. We can transport. We can't. We can only transport between the seed vault, but we can't scan what's inside the seed vault. Like, if you can't penetrate, like, what? It would be so unbelievably unsafe to teleport without any visuals in there. It's just nonsense. Yeah. And I know that at the beginning of our episode, we were like, just make up nonsense if you want to change the rules. And now I'm saying, like, I guess what I'm saying is make up good nonsense. Like, stop being like, this is the equivalent of, like, oh, called the police. I can't. There's no signal on my cell phone. Like, in a world where cell phones exist, it's ridiculous that people can't call the police. Mm-hmm. So you have to invent a new reason. Yeah. And this feels like that. In a world where we have transporters and we have ability to scan at the atomic level, there should be really nothing that you can miss. Yeah. But I know that you have to miss stuff, and I know that's a plot device, but I just think you should do a better job of it.
Plus, do you want them to go to the ship? Just figure out some other reason why they have to go over. Like the guy's not responsive, or he won't answer them, and they're like, okay, you know what? We're going over there. That's what would have happened in like Golden Era Trek, right? They would have been like, the person would have been sweaty and disheveled, and they wouldn't have known what was going on. They would have, cut the call short, and then Picard would have been like, get a ready room. Get a away team.
Get a ready room. Yeah. Get a ready room
for them. No, like get an away team together. Go check it out. Yeah. And here they're just like, no, we got to go over, but we have no sensors. Who cares? Who cares if we beam somebody into the middle of a wall?
I mean, it was just a strange. I guess, again, my problem is not that you make up a reason to do stuff. It's that it's just not they didn't follow through with the idea, and it's just not a good, because you've now written a reason not to transport people, and also that you have to transport people. And I mean, the same writer wrote both of those things, I'm sure, and that's just strange to me.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I feel like it wasn't necessary. I feel like a lot of things that happened in that sequence were completely unnecessary and a waste of time. I mean, time is precious. Your episode can only be so long, and you can only develop characters if you're showing them to us and having them, do something, say something. So wasting all of this time with, they're in this nebula cloud and we need to go in there. Okay, we're going to do it. Whoa, lots of turbulence. Okay, but obviously they're going to get there, right? And I don't know what that added to the plot at all. Like, you get there, like Jesse said, they're not responding. You're not able to get a good reading on the life signs, but otherwise you can get onto the ship. Go.
I love how when they go through that cloud, everyone's really nervous now about how Detmer feels about things. So like her partner's like, hey, Detmer, you did a great job not killing us. And she's like, thanks. And it's like, no, like, really, you're totally a worthwhile member of this crew. You shouldn't kill yourself. Yeah. Right. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, this is why you need a counselor on a ship.
Yeah, they are enabled. Like, I feel like hopefully when they get back to Federation HQ, they're like, okay, you are not fit for duty, and we, have some really great future medical science to help you work through this. Don't worry about it. You need to be off duty right now. The right. 1,000 in the year solution to being in a stressful situation and possibly having, some PTSD cannot possibly be just put him back to work and pretend like nothing ever happened. That can't be the solution. And so them being like, great job, Detmer, and her saying it was too close. It shouldn't have been that close. She's telling you, like, something's wrong with me, people. And they're like, just put her back to work. She's doing a great job. Bang up job, Detmer.
You're fine.
Right. I know we talked about it a couple of times now, but this telegraphing is getting obnoxious now. Like, it's just annoying when you telegraph over and over the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like if it's slightly different things, hinting, like the telegraphing about the music, the telegraphing about Detmer. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the end, I'm sure something horrible is going to happen to Detmer, and the music is going to be more important than the burn. And we're all going to be like, well, if only this was telegraphed earlier.
Yeah. I mean, we get it. Can you just have her get some help? Or are you trying to say, is the commentary they're making that, Starfleet, their mental health protocols are terrible and they will always be terrible because it's some sort of fundamental flaw? It's a strange message, but maybe that's what they're trying to tell us. Like, I have no idea why.
Very, very meta. Yeah. Very meta.
It just makes no sense to me. Like, Dr. Culber is supposed to be this fantastic doctor, but simultaneously he's completely negligent. allowing her to continue to fly the damn ship when she's not fit. I don't know.
I know. And now she's had 2 close calls, and it's just like, well, who else are we gonna get? Anybody? Get anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 1,000 years in the future. They could probably give you some software and have that ship fly itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a different discussion, one we could do a whole podcast on, which is like, how does the flying work? Yeah, how does the flying work? Is it really better than computers? Because in modern day, we can't find any people that are better than computers at piloting anything. So I would think that in 1,500 years that would still be true.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, I did like that they talked when they were scanning the ships coming in. They talked about how they had like holographic. Some of them were just like holographic barriers. And then it seems like on the station they have all these like holographic people. And I was thinking, why couldn't you just have a crew that was all like holograms, and there were only like a few like IT people on the ship just to make sure that it kept running. And the rest of it was just holograms.
Why
right?
don't you have
like,
a drone ship? Why don't you just have everybody stays in HQ in a holodeck, and the ships fly, and they're controlled by the people remotely. Like, there are tons of things.
We
that you
just
could do
wrote
that
a
would make
more
sense.
interesting arc than what they've given us. Wouldn't it be so cool if they popped into the future, and when they finally get to the Federation, it's just a bunch of ships full of holographic people, and they can't figure out who's pulling the strings?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so my points. So this is the Keeley refugees, right? The aliens who have been poisoned, and they're trying to save them. I just didn't like the fact that, aside from Saru, they seem to refuse to even do the littlest work to fill out and make one of these alien species more round. Like, why can't they be translated by the universal translator? Even to have them just saying, it hurts, help, ouch, like something. But no, they just
maybe their cries for help got too annoying, so they're like, just mute them.
just turned off the translator. Yeah, it just, nothing is translated from them. Their mouths move and they gesture, but they're just props, and it's a little bit annoying. Just let them say ouch, something. There's something that's intelligible. I'm a little bit annoyed that the other series seems to be doing such a better job at, for lack of a better term, humanizing or making feel realistic their alien species. The ones on this show really do seem to be either just humans with a thing, or props, and that's a miss for me. That's a unforced error. Another general point that I had, though, that I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on was that, by my assessment, the Federation has to still be good. This whole sort of are they evil subplot that they're teasing, like, I assume it has to be a red herring, because, if the Federation in the future were evil, the burn happened and it crippled you. You're not able to travel at warp or procure enough materials to travel at warp in order to sort of maintain your network of ships. You're a shell of what you used to be. And you get this gift-wrapped present that nobody else in the universe has, a ship of people who are loyal to you, with technology that allows you to not only travel at warp speed, but basically appear anywhere. I don't know what the range, they haven't really said what the range of the mycelium network is, but I think it's anywhere immediately, right? And your response is to let them go out on a mission? Like, no way that an evil Federation does that. An evil Federation says, get the hell off that ship. We're taking that technology and outfitting all of our other ships. Anybody from your staff who is required to operate it, we are going to interrogate them or, press them into work. And everybody else, we'll take whatever information we have, but there's no way you're getting on a starship. And that would have been the end of it. The only thing that, in my mind, could stop them from doing that is if they have some principles and rules that prevent them from doing such a thing to, members of Starfleet that appear on their doorstep. And to me, that suggests that all of this sort of oh, what did they do to Georgia? Are they actually really evil? What's going on? Should we trust them? That's all going to be a red herring. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I think very much that they are specifically telegraphing it as exactly what you said, which is specifically to be a red herring.
Mm-hmm.
I think when they hinted that they were going to take the ship, and when they like ended up not doing it, I think it was again trying to show that they are maybe evil.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jesse?
I mean, I agree with Bert. I feel like they're gonna have different motivations than the Federation we know, but I don't think they're evil. I mean, I think they're clearly up to something. I wouldn't be surprised if part of what they're up to has something to do with the Terran, like with the mirror universe.
Mm-hmm. That was weird.
Yeah, because his fascination with her and his knowledge of what was happening with the mirror universe is interesting, right? And sort of the fact that he brings up the genetic differences between Terrans and humans.
Mm-hmm.
There was sort of like a eugenics quantity to that, like it's the quality, sorry, right? Like it was like he was sort of discussing them as if they were, inferior, right? Because you have this gene that just makes you prone to being the way you are.
Yeah.
And so we're going to exterminate you,
Yeah.
or lobotomize you, or whatever.
Yeah.
He just showed her a bunch of like clips of violence and played Beethoven over it until she couldn't look at it anymore.
No, it has to be Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner.
That's a me too
it's
evil.
Beethoven. It's Beethoven's. It's the fifth.
Oh.
It's Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. I'm just saying that Wagner is what I think would make you evil in a eugenics world. Like I think that's what signals evil.
Oh yeah, because it's her favorite music, and she's like, no, anything but Wagner. Although what's the joke about Wagner? He's not as good as he sounds. Yeah.
That is
Screw you, you Nazi
joke.
piece of trash.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that it goes without saying that one of the reasons that we use Wagner as an example is because of the Nazis.
Mm-hmm. Other thing. Oh, this is the other point that I wanted to talk about. It's I guess partially connected to the whole, evil Federation. Is it a red herring sort of thing? I'll just play the clip really quickly.
You and the Federation are afraid because whoever did this must be merciless, a threat to whatever or whomever you hold dear. The weakness of people is generally other people, isn't it?
You're not wrong, but that could also explain why you'd fall in line with Discovery.
Okay, so the big intrigue is that she's figured out their weakness and their fear, and so he turns it back and says, but I figured out your weakness, because the only reason you'd stay on this ship is if there was somebody that you actually cared about in a genuine way, and that makes you weak. Haha, gotcha. Except, who cares? Why does he care? Why does he care? How could this possibly be important? How could this possibly be more important than suddenly having the ability to travel at faster than warp speed when you haven't been able to go anywhere for over 100 years? Why is this, how has this not been put on the back burner?
Also, she didn't choose to be on the ship with Michael Burnham. If you watch how she got on the ship during season 2, she was working for Section 31 quite happily. And because, she got embroiled in the whole thing about control, she ended up accidentally sort of on that ship at the end and got sucked into the future with the rest of them. And you just kind of feel like she should point that out. She'd be like, actually, that's not why I'm on the ship. Let me explain the whole thing. So they're even wrong. Like, he's wrong about that because that's not why she's on the ship. That's not even why she's in our universe, right? Like, she didn't follow Michael Burnham there.
Yeah.
Like, that's not her Michael Burnham, and she's very aware of that. I think she makes comments about that in the first season. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, you're wrong. You're wrong about your own writing. You made an unforced error about your universe, you dumb dummies.
Yeah, and to your point, she didn't even want to follow Michael. Like, if you remember, she was going to go down with her ship, and Michael beamed her out against her will.
She would have preferred death than her company.
The other part of this sort of sequence that I wanted to talk about is when Michael gets back to the ship and she tries to get Philippa's attention, and she's sort of staring off into nothing.
Philippa, are you okay?
Michael,
I asked if you were okay.
why would you ever ask me a question like that?
Tell her she was staring at the wall for 2 minutes. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, this is like, we noticed that something's wrong. You're telegraphing to us that there's something wrong, but like, Michael just lets it go. It's the same with Detmer. Everyone knows something's wrong with Detmer, but everyone's just like, it's whatever, right?
Yeah.
We're just gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it alone.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, there's so many things going on that should be raising red flags for this crew, and it's not.
Yeah. Like, what are we supposed to take from this? That they've done something to her mind, or, she sees Michael coming and she knows that she has to pretend like she doesn't care about her. So she panics and just says, I guess I just look at the wall. I don't care about that person. Don't pay attention to me. Like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to take from this.
Yeah, because she's just having a conversation with Glasses Man. It doesn't seem like he's going to do anything to her. They're just having like a frank discussion. So, I mean, like, maybe she is just trying to look like she doesn't care. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a really weird scene. I agree with Jesse. That's my read of it, was that she's trying to act like she doesn't care about Michael.
Yeah.
It's just I think another poorly executed scene. I do not understand it.
Oh,
it
prediction.
was very strange.
Oh boy.
Glasses Man is the only human is the only alive person in the Federation.
Everyone else is a hologram?
Everyone else is a hologram.
Yeah, maybe attractive leader guy is also a person. He's very attractive.
I don't know. I feel like the Gigolo Man is not. I feel like they're all he's too good looking to be real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that actually is a good point.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, if this is all like, because that would be like, I could see it being like, he's like the Wizard of Oz, and it's like, like, don't look behind the curtain, because he calls them his hollows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he
right?
does. Yeah.
So I want, like, that would be interesting to me if the whole thing is like him. He is the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody left. It's that bleak, and maybe then he is the bad guy.
Mm.
Maybe he caused the burn.
Maybe he is the burn.
I do really very much think that he's the burn, just from that one sequence of him being like, yeah, I don't know why, but that definitely was the feeling that I
I just rather watch Baby Yoda eat eggs than see more of this show.
Okay, last thing that I wanted to get opinions from you guys on is everybody's favorite.
Oh, Lord.
Adira played that same melody.
The melody. So audience, this is, Adira's melody that she plays on the cello that is being sung as a lullaby by the aliens on the Tikov. Michael hears it and she says, how could this possibly be? How could they know the same melody? And she asks Nhan about it, and Nhan is obviously so emotionally invested in seeing people from her species that she just sort of doesn't respond, and they just leave it. And then I think later on, it's revealed that she asks the security officer who was with them, who just blows it off as, oh, everybody knows that melody. So what are your guys' thoughts on where this melody business is going?
I really think that this is the actual subplot. I think this is the main subplot is going to be the solution to this melody. But while we're on the main subplot, can I just say that Book and Michael haven't kissed or had sex in a couple of... So, like, if this is the subplot that's replacing that subplot, that's totally fine with me. I do not want to see Michael and Book's on and off again relationship. I would rather this be the secondary
Alex.
metaplot.
Alex.
But we'll see.
Wait till the next segment.
I don't think this is secondary. I think this is primary plot. I think melody is primary. I think it's somehow the primary thing that's happened. It's connected to the burn. It's connected to everything.
What I'm hoping it is something along the lines of this melody is something about resonance with the crystalline structure of dilithium, and it's part of the signal that was transmitted through the universe to make all the dilithium explode. And so as it passed through
at the right frequency,
yeah,
you play a cello just right.
It has to be a cello.
Yeah.
The burn happens.
That's what it's gonna be. Like
I think it's gonna be tied into what caused the burn. I think it's all part of this big puzzle. And I'm not saying I'm not interested in what they're kind of setting up now, that they're gonna figure out what caused it, and it's all gonna be wrapped up in all the stuff they've done all season. But say you're you have a regular Navy and someone pulls up in an old like sailing vessel, right? Or even like one of like those early like steamships from like the White Fleet that the Americans had when they like fight the Spanish, and they had these like half white, half steel. You know, someone shows up on that and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna join your Navy." No,
No.
no. Well, you know, like the spore drive's interesting. The rest of that ship is an antique.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to be useful in battle or anything we do because technology's moved so far ahead. And that's just in like a span of like a little over 100 years. How are they even like okay with this thing being part of their operations aside from that spore drive, which you think with their technology, they should be easily able to like
replicate?
Yep. Just
But like,
Remember the programmable matter that they hinted at already? It's like, yeah, okay, let's just program it.
Yeah.
Program another Stamets.
Yeah.
It takes 10 seconds. Make 100 Stamets.
Make it 100
Put
of
a Stamets on every ship.
yeah.
And now we've solved the problem.
You know, a guy from 1,000 years ago tells you, "Oh, I'd worked for 10 years on making an AI a navigator for this thing, and it didn't work. I was the only one." That's cool, but you're 1,000 years old. We don't really care what you did because it's everything you've ever encountered is antiquated. You know?
Yeah.
And also, Jesse, to go on with your sort of analogy, if that white fleet ship comes and you know, the entire US Navy is grounded and they can only really patrol the coast now because of whatever. The ocean is more dense now, something. But this white fleet ship that comes and is already 100 years old is able to traverse the ocean. You are not going to immediately send it on a patrol mission or any kind of mission, rescue mission.
No.
You are going to say, how does that work? We need more of it. You're grounded until we figure it out and have the schematics so that we can build it. Like, it just is a very odd choice.
It's just so dangerous. Like, they absolutely could have been destroyed on their first mission. And then you've lost the spore drive.
Yeah.
Like, it's baffling.
And also, you have to trust them implicitly now, right? You can't really suspect that Discovery is lying and that they're a spy ship for some enemy, because if they were, they can travel wherever they want and they know where you are and you let them leave. So I mean,
I did like that there was still that consideration about temporal agents.
Yeah.
I did like that they brought that up. That was the one part I liked about Star Trek Enterprise. I thought the temporal Cold War was a cool idea, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of some of the later episodes they did on it, but I did like the idea of a war that was being fought through time.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think it's actually really good science fiction.
Yeah.
And maybe 10 minutes of every one of our episodes, we get to talk about good science fiction. And that is another example of good science fiction.
We'll wrap it there.
Okay.
Thanks for checking out our podcast. Again, you can email us at 83, that's the number 83, infinitycast@gmail.com. You can find our podcast or leave us a voicemail at anchor.fm/83. That's the number 8, the number 3, infinity. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to see more of or less of, and we'd be happy to hear. Bye.
All right, catch you on the rundown next time, fans.